Hello. It's probably gonna be a super duper chill live tonight. I've been up and down and all around today, so I'm just here to feel the vibes, go with the vibes. I want to talk about weather magic today a little bit. I went through as many of my books as I could reasonably go through before this live, and didn't end up finding what I was looking for. Which is fine. Hi, Lid. It's good to see you. Yeah, I was going through. I was like, I have my whole bookcase full of different witchy magical books. Turns out, basically none of them have anything to say about the weather magic that I was thinking of. Um, I have, I had like a couple of sources and things in mind, but everything, so many of these things, so many of the ways that I intake magical information and lore and stuff, right, is through audiobooks and podcasts. Turns out none of those things are physical books that I have that I can reference. So it's fine. But I've been thinking about how I'm personally going to be magically handling the probabilities of incoming magic as my cat is being rambunctious and seeking playtime. My very Mars aligned cat. My rambunctious ram of a cat. Anyway, so yeah, so I've been thinking about how I'm specifically gonna deal with an incoming ice storm, a bunch of all this stuff. No, I'm not sick. But we have big. I'm just thinking about the weather. There's nothing wrong with me. I am deeply distracted by the cat. I'm deeply distracted by this creature doing as he usually does. But no, I'm fine. I am a little sleepy. Full transparency. It was nap time before it was live. It was research, read books time, and then it was nap time for about 10 minutes, and then it was live time. So I spent a while going through everything. But yeah, just realized that all of the sources that are in my head are not on my bookshelf, so that's fine. He's a gorgeous kitty. Good little Onyx. Very adorable. Very, very attention-seeking. It's the, like, if there was ever a cat that you could play rough with, it's this guy. And I don't really play rough with him, but he's just such a muscly little creature. Oh my god! Almost pulled over my computer and my lamp. I expect nothing less, honestly. Okay, so ironically, the only thing that I found out of all of the stuff that I was looking for, I still have things locked away in my little brain case here from all those other places. I just can't cite them, but I have a bunch of different. I used an envelope as my bookmark, so I'm like not trying to put my address on the internet. But William Butler Yeats, I have a bunch of his poetry and his playwriting and his all kinds of stuff. Because he was an occultist. He was, if I'm remembering correctly, I'm pretty sure he was a member of the Order of the Golden Dawn, which, you know, that was the big thing in Western occultism, right, for a long, long time. So that was like the brotherhood of the magicians and the occult, right? So the fraternal organization. So he was a member of that. He was a big mythical enjoyer and writer. So I found one of his poems that's quite short, but it was the most weather related thing that I could find, and I just loved it because it's also it's one of those, it's about the clouds, which means it's obviously not about the clouds, it's about the people in the government and the blah 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 blah. He was also very, that kind of forward forward thinking in his political stance. So I'm just going to read this for you really quickly because I really enjoyed it. I may end up accidentally doing this in slightly an Irish accent. William Butler Yeats, or W.B. Yeats. That's him. That's him name. But, yeah. Great writer. Yeah. W.B. Yeats. William Butler Yeats. So, these are the clouds. So, yeah, I may end up accidentally doing it in an Irish accent. We'll find out. It's not even an accident, because he's Irish, and so I'm like kind of reading it in the accent, but I'm not reading it in the accent. It's fine. Take a grounding breath, turn down the music a little bit. So, these are the clouds about the fallen sun, the majesty that shuts his burning eye. The weak lay hand on what the strong has done, till that be tumbled that was lifted high. And discord follow upon unison, and all things at one common level lie. And therefore, friend, if your great race were run, and these things came so much more thereby, have you made greatness your companion, although it be for children that you sigh? These are the clouds about the fallen sun, the majesty that shuts his burning eye. So, just that, the weak lay hand on what the strong has done is so, like, to be the clouds obscuring the sunlight, and it's like a dominating force, right? Every storm, but also every calm cloud coming in and becoming that which is becoming the overcast sky instead of the sunny sky, and these like droplets of water vapor becoming like exerting their power to block out this kingly radiant sun, right? So, in terms of weather magic, love that. In terms of political stance of the many more, like, the many lesser, right, the many less significant people stepping in and throwing in their combined power to block out the dominating forces. I just loved that in general as a message and as something that sort of gets us on topic just a little bit. So, excuse me. And yes, please excuse my stumbling around it a little bit, but I just really enjoyed it. So, and that's from 1910. Like, this is old lad. Like, I still hear 1910, and I'm like, oh, 100 years ago. And I'm like, oh, 116 years ago. Oh. So, yes, but these are the clouds about the fallen sun, the majesty that shuts his burning eye, the weak lay hand on what the strong has done, till that be tumbled that was lifted high. I think that's a really good image and a really good description of sort of how the weather, like the metaphor of the weather, but also the people, but also like how we can kind of do this type of magic on our own. I'm not saying that I can make this incoming ice storm that's about to hit Georgia go away. It's certainly not as one person. Maybe if I like really tried and put together a whole group of spiritual people, maybe we could exert enough power as the many clouds to block things out, right? But realistically, that's not going to happen. So, why is the camera... I am not moving and the camera's going up and down and up and down. That's... oh god, that's going to drive me crazy. Can we stop that? Okay. Yes, so weather magic things. A lot of what weather magic is in various senses, and like, because it's this highly elevated form of elemental magic, right? And you know me, I talk about elemental shit all the time. I talk about it for sigils, I talk about it for tarot. Um, yeah, I know. I was like, is it Odin? Is it Hermes? They're the only two candles that are lit, but otherwise, anyway, it matters not. But it is just the different form, like weather magic in itself is a huge category with clearly, based on the sources that I have, not as much documentation as I would like. Um, there have been people who will like bury knives in the ground or put knives, like stab a knife face down in their yard as a way to cut the wind coming onto their property. Huge, cool, huge, crazy. Um, but like that's the kind of magic that you would probably find in Florida or in Appalachia or in any of these kinds of places where like that kind of folk magic of the knife is all you need to cut the wind, right? Super simple, still magically sound and should be effective. That's a favorite of mine that I will remember forever and always. Obviously, like I'm not going to go into anything Native American rain dance, any of that stuff. I'm not educated enough. I don't know, but on principle, that kind of raising of energy in a group setting to impact the weather is exactly what we would be talking about in this. The clouds covering the sun, the group unit ex- exerting this energy to influence the outside world. Yeah, folk magic like that is one of those things that really got me into. I say witchcraft, right? But it's not really. It doesn't have to be witchcraft specific. It's the kind of thing where if you were talking to an old Appalachian grandma and she was doing that kind of magic and you called her a witch, she would beat you with a stick, right? If you were talking to uh, an old like an old like Mexican Catholic grandma or something like that, and she was doing prayers to saints and doing her own kind of magic that is like the folk magic, and you called her a bruja, and she would be so infuriated. Like this is the kind of like folk magic that is done by the people who don't want to be called witches, right? That would never even attempt to claim that word or would be abhorrent if you attempted to apply it to them. Yeah, exactly. So, but that's the level where like we're at that in that folk magic realm with knives cutting the wind. One of the things that's a little more not technical, but a little more um, ritual than that, which that is ritual. But one of the things that I've seen people do for weather magic for specific regions as much as possible is if you have a map of a region and you're essentially in the process of like ritual and enchantment, you're making the map that you have one of your magical tools and representing whatever you want to happen symbolically over the map. So if you've got this like yes, that's why I went down that tangent because I was like, I think you will relate to this. Um, but yeah, so if you want to bring rain, you you could potentially laminate the map so that you don't actually literally get it. Like you wouldn't want it to flood, but if you wanted to bring rain to a region on a map, and you could like flick water onto it, right? Get a bowl with fresh, clean water and flick it on and make sure that it runs off. Like, do maybe have the table at an angle so that you don't represent a flood with just these giant pools of water. Like, small pools of water is puddles, and that's fine, but just don't, like, douse your whole map in a bucket of water and let it sit there, because that's the representation there and the symbolism there is much more aggressive and much more frustrating for everybody else. But it's just the impression of like using your own breath to be the wind, using water to be the rain, or potentially using heat to combat things like water or ice. So that's when I talk about what I'm probably going to be doing. First of all, I have a freaking million, and by a million I mean probably like 80 or so, little tea candles, because I went to IKEA and bought the pack of 100 tea lights for $5, which it probably means that they're probably made horribly in terrible ways. But regardless, I have those. So I'm probably going to be putting some of the Mars related things that I have on those. I know that I'm planning on carving the Mars glyph, the astrological glyph for Mars, into at least a couple of them, in an attempt. And this is, Mars is a malefic technically in astrology, so I'm trying to be careful with this, but I know that I personally need to work with him more because he's a heavy ruler in my chart. Scorpio and Aries are both ruled by Mars. I'm a Scorpio sun and rising in an Aries moon. My 10th house is Mars. My Mars placement is in my 10th house in Leo. That's where my career stuff is. That's theoretically any kind of presentation I have this way online, any kind of presentation I have in my day job, whatever. All of that stuff is very, very tied to Mars for me. So I'm trying to get more comfortable working with him, it, whatever, the martial energy, the Mars energy. And in this case, when there's going to be crazy freezing temperatures and the power's probably going to go out and we need freaking heat. Like, we have a fireplace upstairs, but I don't have a fireplace downstairs. So it's very much like I just need any kind of radiance and warmth and representation of that, like, fire and that energy that I know will, on its most base principle, combat the freezing and the ice. So I'm not trying to do like a crazy, a huge melting of anything, right? I'm not taking a map and putting 100 Mars candles on the map and melting all of the ice that's about to come in. As long as the power doesn't go out, yes. Once the power goes out, it's blankets and blankets and blankets. And, you know, like I said, fireplace upstairs. But there's also cats down here, so, like, need to take care of cats. You know. So, if it's just cold, I'm fine. I can handle cold, especially if the power's on. But, you know. Yeah, so point being, I'm just trying to at least magically generate and bring in some of that hot, dry Mars energy through candle magic, because candle magic is so simple. And back when I first started all this stuff, I feel like I was like, candle magic is too simple. Like, that's silly. Like, that's never gonna work. And then I started doing candle magic, and I would hear people who were really experienced say, like, no, do candle magic. It works. It's super simple. It's great. And I'd just be like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, I would do stuff with candles, but the candles wouldn't be the spell. The candles would be like the ambiance, the accoutrement, and like the energy of the spell would include some candles being lit, but the candles wouldn't be the spell. And then when I think about it in retrospect over the last 10 years, pretty much all of my most effective spell work has all been candle magic. So I'm trying to learn from my own lessons here and make use of the simplest stuff. I want to get some red candles too, in addition, like some red taper candles in addition to the tea lights with the symbol carved into them. Again, red, Mars, heat, fire, duh. So anything that can pull that energy in, that's what I'm going for. So I am going to be meditating with it. I'm going to be doing some checking, some validation, asking for some validations. I'm going to do tarot readings. I'm going to do all the stuff that I need to do to make sure that I'm not just, like, literally about to set the house on fire. Like, let's not do that. Knock on whatever you got. socks and socks and socks. Yeah. So, that's probably, this is me attempting to do something that I need to be working on anyway. So I don't know if I necessarily recommend that anybody else light a bunch of Mars candles in their house, but I'm trying to remediate a little bit at the same time as like making use of it and taking part in the whole thing. So that's my plan. Let's see. My very cold decaf coffee. Otherwise, for weather magic stuff, I have because I have a lot of connections to. This will forever be one of the, to me, hilarious juxtapositions of my magical life, that like I have always been so deeply connected to water, but everything that represents me is always earth. Like in the tarot in my deck, I am the Knight of Pentacles, and so usually or I have been. Sometimes it changes. Sometimes I'm the Hermit. Sometimes other things, but usually it comes back to me being the Knight of Pentacles, which is obviously an earth element, and I have this ethereal need to deal better with fire, because of all of the Mars placements, all of the everything for the astrology. So, that is what it is. I have to find balance, I guess, but I do have, if there's one sort of combo of water and fire that I do normally get on with really well, it's storms. I don't call storms in, but when they're here, they're like the most potent, and there's such a strong energetic concentration, despite being dispersed over a huge area of like, I'm not going out and standing in a lightning storm, but even just a normal storm that's not a lightning storm is so aggressive and has so much pent up energy, and like, I guess ionization going on probably is what it is, right? That whole thing with like petrichor and the smell before the rain and all that stuff. It's like something about ions in the atmosphere. I don't fully understand. Would love to. More science research. Have not done that. Regardless. So it's just, there's a lot to the natural energies of all of this stuff that I'm trying to incorporate and trying to think about pretty much all the time, except for when I'm like really needing to take a spiritual break for some reason. But it is like, right now it's just one of those times where this is a different kind of storm, and you can kind of feel it in your gut already before it even gets here. So this is not going to be a standing out in the storm kind of a storm. This is going to be a like, yeah, hunker and cozy kind of a storm. Yeah, exactly. Even if you don't use the magic, even if you don't use magic at all, you can feel it. Agreed. Totally agreed. I am thinking, to be 100% honest, I'm starting to run out of gas. Do you have thoughts or questions or anything that you want to share? Because if not, I know we've only been on for like 20 minutes or so. I'm just having a really hard time keeping track tonight, like staying on track tonight. So we'll probably stay on for a few more minutes, but I'm just like, this might be a night for a short live. I know I try to never actually cut them short, even if I think I'm gonna cut them short before I start. I try to not actually do it, but I'm kind of feeling it tonight. Not at the moment. Okay. My brain is just so caught up in the buzz of everything. I have been like doing all of the practical preparations. Yeah, I've been doing all the practical preparations for the storm itself. So there was a lot of running around to different stores and getting, we've got all the food we need. We've got, extra power banks for charging our phones, and all of the practical concerns that could be addressed before bringing in magical solutions, right? as I'm always trying to do. So, yeah. I think you may be right. I think tonight might be a self-care night. But I really did want to come on and talk about this at least because I love weather magic. It is actually something that I have a passion for. But I think I may have found that tonight may just not be the right night for it. But yeah, I do really appreciate you coming in. I'll go ahead and do. I was gonna do. Yeah. I was actually thinking about maybe instead of doing the Tao Te Ching today, maybe we do another one of these, another one of the Yeats poems. Yeah. Like I said, if you have a question or two now, I don't mind staying on and answering them. I'm just realizing I don't think I have another half hour worth in me. But I think I am going to go ahead and do the bibliomancy portion with this instead of the Tao Te Ching. Partially because the Tao Te Ching is holding up my bird. And I like my bird, and I don't want my bird to fall over. Okay. This is also... I did get this secondhand, so someone else has got all these little notes and things on the tabs and on the pages, and I'm like... I've just... As I've read through this book casually a couple of sittings, I'm just like, look at all this stuff. Anyway, okay. Like I said, having a really hard time staying on track. Okay. You know the deal. Energetic... Wow. General energetic affirmation. Yay. Okay, we're good. Message for just right now, for like the next few days, next like 4 days or so, what do we need to keep in mind? Okay, this one's from 1934, a few years later. Called Meru? Interesting. Civilization is hooped together, brought under a rule, under the semblance of peace, by manifold illusion, but man's life is thought, and he, despite his terror, cannot cease, ravening through century after century. Ravening, raging and uprooting, that he may come into desolation of reality. Egypt and Greece, goodbye, and goodbye Rome, hermits upon Mount Meru or Everest, caverned in night under the drifted snow, or where that snow and winter's dreadful blast beat down upon their naked bodies know, that day brings round the night, that before dawn his glory and his monuments are gone. Woo! Okay, I am going to try to read that again. I was like, I knew that there were other ones in here that were going to mention like snow and ice and storms and things, but just none of them had it in the title. And then of course, so I guess Meru is a mountain, Mount Meru or Everest. Storms and snow. Civilization is hooped together, brought under a rule and under the semblance of peace by manifold illusion, but man's life is thought, and he, despite his terror, cannot cease, ravening through century after century, ravening, raging, and uprooting, that he may come into the desolation of reality. Egypt and Greece, goodbye, and goodbye Rome, hermits upon Mount Meru or Everest, caverned in night under the drifted snow, or where that snow and winter's dreadful blast beat down upon their naked bodies know, that day brings round the night, that before dawn his glory and monuments are gone. That was cool. I liked that. That was a lovely little message to get on our pre-storm time. Pre-storm live. I am going to call it there for tonight. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you as always. And I will see you next time. Ta-ta for now.